Are there any additions or corrections? If not, do I hear a motion for approval?
I so move.
And I would second that.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the June minutes are approved. There are no public appearances. We apologize, there was a schedule conflict, so we are in a different room today. We're back in the chamber, in the city council chamber. I forget what we call this place. At any rate, so if hopefully there's nobody in the other area that wants to say something. Okay, our first agenda item to look at is the 2024 budget.
Okay, so in your packet, I included, the budget has lots and lots and lots of other pages, but this is the bulk of what I have to submit in terms of money. There's another page that I'll talk about that has sort of what our initiatives are for next year, what our accomplishments are. The budget's not due until July 25th, so I hadn't dived into it very deeply because I was leaving for vacation. And so what you're seeing here is the 2023 levels that were approved in the budget. And then what finance does is they just carry that stuff over for 2024, but we can change anything. So you'll see the same numbers listed for 2023 and 2024. And so I thought it would be helpful to go through this. And so this is really just my operating, and it's pretty darn small, if you ask me. I think that I've been very fiscally responsible over the years. We are really grateful and lucky to have the Friends that do a lot of funding of different things for the senior center, which keeps our city budget a little bit lower. So I'll kind of go through these and certainly stop me if you have questions. Starting with the Commission on Aging meetings, people have an opportunity to get a stipend or not, so we always put some funds in there. Next, Oregon Senior Center contribution. This comes up once in a while, and it's kind of an interesting agreement that we've had with the Oregon Senior Center for many, many years. Since I've been here, so many years, where they run an adult day center. And it is on a sliding scale, which is highly unusual. Usually an adult day center, you're going to pay almost $100 a day if you want your loved one that you're caring for to go to a center. Oregon's is on a sliding scale. They get money from the county to help subsidize that program. And within that program, they will allocate 3 or 4 slots for Fitchburg. They only can take about 10 or 11 people, but they have staff specifically for that adult daycare, and it's Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and they do a fantastic job. And so with this contribution, it sort of guarantees that Fitchburg people will have a slot. And it's really nice for us because they also do transportation, because that's always difficult too. So it's really just I would say a partnership, but it's our obligation or commitment to the Oregon Senior Center that we'll give $1,000, which is really nothing, for a whole year, for them to sort of say, okay, Fitchburg has a priority. Over the years, we've had, last year we had 4 adults attending. That's nearly half of their spots. Sometimes we have 3, sometimes it ebbs and flows, but with its proximity and affordability to Fitchburg, it's really nice to keep this partnership with them. So there has been a moment where the city said, no, we don't want to do that, and I did put it back in there. I always have, and I haven't had any issues for a few years now. So that's what that contribution is to Oregon Senior Center. You can see, and again, just stop me if you have questions. Oh, sure. Okay. Jim?
Is Fitchburg foresighted enough to develop their own adult daycare center?
Well, certainly, but Oregon has 2 part-time staff just hired for adult day. So I don't see that happen.
Additional just hired now?
Oh, yeah, no, Oregon has, but they have particular staff just for their adult day center. So if we were going to do something like that, in fact, when I started, we did a little respite care, and as part of my activity director, I actually would do some respite for people. They would drop their loved one off, and I would, be with them and do activities, for a couple hours a day. But then as we got busier, you can't do that. You have to hire staff to program, particularly for this population. So if we wanted to do that, we would really need an allocated room and staff. So no. Janice?
Yeah, how do we go about outreach for the community to know about this?
Well, it usually comes through the social workers. So, as we're dealing with clients and we've got our caregiver support group that they go and speak with as they see case management clients. And I'm going to go through some of the case scenarios of working with families that need support. That information would come through the social workers and the referrals would come through them. So otherwise, you're right, Janet, it's not in our newsletter really. I don't know if Oregon wants us to, we can't have all the slots. But certainly the people that, we come across that need that support and need that respite, that's where it comes through the social workers.
I just want to know, I'm sure that there are people here that aren't
Sure.
familiar with it, residents that aren't familiar with that.
Yeah.
So that's just.
Yeah, nope, it's a good question. And, it's fun to, you're coming in this so new, I'm so used to everything, so I welcome those kind of questions.
Oh, good, because I have whole.
Oh, I know. It's all good. So, all right. So moving on, repairs and maintenance by others, we don't have a ton. I keep it pretty low. It's not often that the whole refrigerator might break down or a hot cold well, a coffee maker. And so, if I go over, it is what it is, but usually it's minimal in terms of the maintenance that I need to pay for. And it's usually related to things in the kitchen. And so that's usually not an issue though over there. Digital signage software. We share this expense with Fact TV and other departments, and that digital signage software, that's a new expense as of last year, but you'll see digital signage when you come in to the City Hall, and we have a column there that says, senior center, where we're located, what's going on, what our hours are. So that's the digital signage. We have a TV downstairs where you come in. My goal is you don't know where it is because when you come in, you have to look up, and I want it right by our receptionist desk so it scrolls what our activities are or any other information. So that's just a cost share that the city put in there. Not really, I didn't. Other contractual. So again, we split the cost of the cable that goes down to the senior center. So we have internet for folks that come in. And again, it's just a cost share with other departments. Independent contractor payments. So that is, our independent contractors right now are mainly, say, our yoga instructors. If we do any other outside activities that we have to hire someone and then pay them, that's an independent contractor. So that's not our exercise classes. So those folks are LTEs, so they're considered limited term staff. But these are independent contractors, again, that we would pay maybe to come in, and we did a mindfulness class, and we had to pay them. So that's out of that. But keeping in mind, there's a revenue side to this. So whatever we collect from these contractors, we retain 20%. So they get 80%. So that's what the independent contractor payments are. So you just kind of look at past years and what you spent. COVID kind of changed everything. But as we move forward, we're bringing some contractors back that might offer a class for a fee. Okay, constant contact. So hopefully all of you are signed up for our email blasts that go into your inbox. And so that's just a yearly fee. It's a great site, and it's really boosted our marketing by being able to have the newsletter once a month, but then send out these email blasts to folks once or twice a month to say this is coming up. And then language line is the translation services, so that's a phone line that, in fact, we just used it a couple weeks ago where we had a client that we had to work with who spoke Spanish, and our social worker just connected through language line, and then there's an interpreter, but they have every language in the book, and so we are able to use this. We've used it before to do sign language, and so it's really inexpensive because we're a city, and so I don't need a ton of money for that. So that's what language line is. So again, stop me if you have questions. Go ahead.
The language line? Is that only available through the social workers, or is that?
No, any of us.
It's online?
Yep, we all have.
So it's part of the website?
Well, no, if somebody called or we knew that somebody couldn't speak English, we would then call into the language line and get connected through them and then connect the person that we need to speak with.
Okay.
So it's not really in person. We could Zoom, though, using a language line if we needed to. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
Is that a per contact cost or
Yeah.
annual? So you haven't used it that much. Do you expect it will go up?
I hope so. We used it last week, and I don't know the number of minutes that they were on the phone, but it was like $7. You know what I mean? So it's really inexpensive because we're government, and they give you quite a deal. So yeah, I hope so. You know. Office supplies and postage, you can see there, just what we generally spend for postage for office supplies. And then I always put out the printer cartridges just because I find it interesting. I don't know. Because we went from printers to now everything is on our copy machine. And so I was always interested to see, is the printers really more expensive or the copy machine? Because we still have to buy the big cartridges, but it is a little cheaper to print everything on the copy machine. Professional organizations and dues, movie license, that keeps us safe, so we can show movies legally. The music license we share also, this one is shared between us and the chamber. And this is because years and years ago when the senior center ran the city concerts, the concerts at McKee, we paid for that license. And now that the chamber took it over, we must have had an agreement that we'll pay half of it. But this license also lets us play any music here. It covers all the aerobics music that we play. And I know there's another second music license that Recreation has to pay for. So there's a lot of music licensing, which is kind of kooky. But they're also paying for one too. And believe you me, I ignored paying for this music license for quite some time because I couldn't figure out how they discovered me. And I thought it was a scam because when I ran the concerts, I was like, why do I have to pay a license to have concerts at McKee? And then they went to the city administrator. I was like, okay, I guess we better pay this. It's crazy that they find you. And they do. Same with the movie license. So anyway, now we're legal.
Do we use the movies?
We're playing movies now. We're doing the musical movies right now. We did a lot of movies before COVID. We haven't brought them back yet. And some of it is because I don't have the folks that could really enjoy the movies can't come because I don't have transportation. But a gentleman is doing some musicals once a month and talking about just the history of musicals. So we are doing them. That doesn't mean we can't bring them back for sure because we have a license. So, all right, moving down. We don't have any uniforms. Training and staff development. I allocate $400 per staff. And then the $200 is for Sarah, who's split between the police department. We use a lot of trainings through CIVMIC, the city's insurance company, and they're all free, and they're virtual, and they're pretty good. And so a lot of the stuff that our staff does is free. The social workers do a lot of different trainings in terms of ethics and boundaries and things related to social work. So if one uses more than another, we usually balance out just fine. There's a couple Wisconsin Association of Senior Center trainings in the spring and fall that I go to. We don't really do a lot of hotel stays or anything like that. So,
Jill,
yeah.
With the changing of demographics here in Fitchburg, are you doing for staff any training relative to diversity, inclusion, that kind of thing?
We did, I don't think it was last year, but the year before through Nehemiah, a cultural competency training.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the first one we've done,
Okay.
but I'll make a note.
Okay.
Yeah. This is vehicle use reimbursement, so it's not super high because we also have a city car now that we've had for 5, 6, 7 years. So this is if the car is being used by somebody else, and since there's 3 case managers and others of us go to meetings, we can submit for mileage. We generally don't have it this high because we're using the city car, and that gas will be down below. So then the next one is the vehicle expenses. Usually for oil changes or any little tiny issues, we just take it up to the public works guys, and they do all of that for us, so we don't really incur a lot of expenses. Hopefully the car, stays in good, it doesn't need a lot of repairs at this point.
Jill,
Yeah.
gas reimbursement for Meals on Wheels, where does that come from?
So that comes from RSVP,
Oh, yeah,
right? So that's through,
that's right.
and people can choose to have that or not,
Right.
which is the beauty of RSVP, that we don't have to pay for those miles. Same for those taking people to medical rides. They can submit their miles for that through RSVP. And they get county funding for that too. Operating materials, just stuff downstairs. We're making copies, we got to order things, cards, just rando things like that you need day to day. That might be more than just an office supply, pens and paper or whatever. Public information and education is the newsletter. The printing, is not cheap, but we also bring in $3,000 a year from advertisers, so we cover the cost of our printing. And then the other thing is marketing materials and brochures or flyers. If I make copies we just made copies of the new marketing brochure. And then if we want to do an ad in a paper, and, this kind of ebbs and flows. We try to get the free ads in the Fitchburg Star. We don't have the city page anymore, so that might go up a little bit if we have to pay for ads, because the city used to have the back page, and we could do anything for free there. Equipment expenses, so this again, we do have to replace the microphones, sometimes the headsets. This is the stuff that we use down in the office. If we need a chair, if we need shelves or that kind of stuff, so not a huge budget. Digital signage equipment, I gotta look at that too, because I don't know what that is compared to what the other digital signage is, and what that's coming from. I don't know, I'll double check on that. And you'll see this budget again before it gets approved. It's a long process, so. Senior center events and programs and supplies, very limited. I can say over the years, we've leaned in on the Friends more for program supplies. I can say over the years, we used to have a lot more entertainers. We used to do a lot more guest speakers and pay them. And we don't do the entertainers quite as much. And again, I've leaned in on the Friends. They've given me a program budget that I can do things like that. But I'll talk about the request for next year, because we're gonna ask for a little bit more. Volunteer appreciation. Mandy does a good job of negotiating with different venues when we do things for volunteers. And we've done appreciation events at local restaurants. We've done them at the senior center. We've catered them in. We just do different things. We've brought in, maybe a speaker, but it's usually around that amount. And so we do okay with that. There's the fuel for the gas. So we have a city gas card. So if we're using the city car, we fill it up using this certain gas card. So that's about what we're spending in that. And then last is the copy machine. That's about what it costs to lease. And, they charge you per copy for color and black and white after a certain amount. And so that is my operating expenses. As you can see, it's not super high. And so looking forward, and I didn't put any personnel in here because the personnel, the new staffing isn't due until actually August 8th. So the budget's due July 25th. Usually staffing is due before that if you're going to do any new proposals. So last year in the budget, I did put in 2 new proposals. One was a part-time nutrition manager at 25 hours. So all they do is work in the kitchen and just make sure all the standards are being met. There's a lot of Dane County stuff that we have to deal with for the nutrition site. And then move a volunteer coordinator position to full-time, because I can see it's more of a like 70-30 split, more volunteer coordinating. But then with that volunteer coordinating, that person would take over marketing and social media sites, because those are things that, as we have all been in our jobs, there are just kind of other duties as assigned. When I started, we didn't have a website, we didn't have Facebook, we didn't have all of that, different ways to market things. And so it takes a lot of time to keep up with those things. And so I put that in, and obviously it didn't pass. So that would have been the new staffing proposals last year. On top of the part-time, the police, the shared position. And so for next year, what I'm looking at, and this will coincide, so the city's been doing an organizational study for the last 3-4 months, and they're looking at every department and efficiencies and what people want. And so the organizational study entailed meeting with every department head, with every staff in the city, and just talk about what's going well, what's not going well, what do you need for your department. So they're going to be putting out their recommendations before hopefully August 8th. And so we've been directed to look at what those recommendations are and then base our staffing on that. But also too, if we look at the recommendations and we're not feeling comfortable that they're really going to meet our needs, then we still can put whatever staff we want in.
I was going to ask that
Yeah,
question.
yeah. And with Julia being a first-time mayor, she has actually asked us to look out more than 1 year and just put it in there, put your staff in there, what you need, which I think is great. Kind of like a CIP. You look out 10 years and this is how you're going to grow. And so that's kind of exciting to be able to create more of a long-term staffing plan. I know the city talked about that a lot when we took on the town of Madison, but it's the first time I've heard it, just like, let's just talk about what you're going to need moving forward. So for next year, this is what I'm thinking. And I haven't seen the organizational study, but I'd like to put in a Spanish-speaking case manager for 20 hours. And it would round out that other 20-hour position that Sarah is sharing. And so, and then I'd like to put back in the volunteer coordinator at full-time that takes over the marketing, communications, and special events, which then would free up Dave to do more programming things that we need to see happening, and more outreach and more cultural competent programs that would just reach out to more of the population that we're seeing in the diversity here. And then I'm going to put back in the 25-hour nutrition site manager. So that's what I'd like to put forward, and that's staffing. For just regular stuff, transportation obviously has just been so difficult to get any movement on. And, Years ago, we were going to buy a bus, and this is years ago, 20 years ago, and then we looked at how complicated that is with drivers and scheduling that we wanted to just, subcontract. And for many years, the Friends paid out money to subcontract with different providers so we could have supplemental transportation outside of the meals. I've written a lot of CDBG grants over the years, and as the city has grown and as this has become the hub, the city, the center, if you want to call it, where you have a library, a city hall, a rec department, and a senior center, I moved towards trying to push the city to address the transportation gaps, because it's not just for older adults that need transportation, it's for more. And also, too, I think we can serve more people if we offer transportation to more people. We've gotten close, and with staffing changes, we just haven't been able to move forward and decide, even after 2 transportation studies, what's going to really meet the needs of the community. So it's not that the city doesn't realize there's an issue, it's just how are we going to meet the needs in the most cost-effective way. Obviously, it's not going to be Metro. They didn't bring rapid transit down here, so we don't have that. Now we have the town of Madison, and so I want to propose to the city that we put in $10,000 in my budget, and I'll just subcontract with somebody and figure it out, and push that forward. I've done enough fundraising. I'm a city department. These are paid taxpayer, people that pay to live here. And I just don't feel like long-term I can just continue to fundraise and fundraise and fundraise for a service that is essential. It's an essential service in this city. And as we can continue to grow, if Metro is expanding a little in the northern part, but we're growing south and nobody can get here. And so that's what I'm going to propose. Again, there was money in the budget to even purchase a bus. We were looking at a grant from the DOT because it's an 80-20 split, which is great. And then operating is 50-50. But that's working with Public Works, who I was working with for over a year. And then there was some staffing changes, and then things got put on hold again. So they are fully staffed. But they did push out that bus purchase. So they did put money in again to do another study, not to say we need transportation, but what is the most cost-effective way to provide that transportation? So is it buying a bus, hiring a driver, and then who's going to do all the scheduling, or is it subcontracting a company to just take care of it all?
Jill, are there other models out there that
Yeah.
you look at and say, we should be doing this?
I've looked
and
all
this
over,
works?
yes. I've looked all over the state.
Practices.
I've looked at, Door County has a wonderful shuttle. La Crosse has a shuttle. Sun Prairie has shared ride taxi. Stoughton has shared ride taxi. There's a lot of models that we can be looking at. I know transportation providers are hard to come by right now since COVID. There's a lack of drivers. It's hard to find staffing. I know that even with our company we're working with. But I think that there's models that we can replicate without a lot of issue. When we did put the RFP out before, when we had a rideshare program, unfortunately, there was only 2 providers that responded to the RFP, and one was a Lyft. And at that point, not everybody could use their phones, and they didn't have any wheelchair access. So we went with the other provider, and there was a lot of things that didn't go well, and I think a lot of things we can learn from. Not as an experienced provider that we had hoped. So, if indeed we put out another RFP, we would hope that, some of the more experienced providers around Dane County would respond. So it didn't work out, but there wasn't a lot of options. But again, it was the city's first attempt, and I think I'm probably one of the only staff left that lived through that. And so, again, I always feel like we're starting at ground zero with all new staff. So keep pushing. Go ahead, Janice.
How many studies have the city done?
2.
And what's the obstacle that they're foreseeing?
Cost, I think. I think that the studies, the first study, I have to look back because I've been through 2. And it was more like the company would say, well, here's what it's going to cost to do Metro. Here's what's going to cost to do your own bus. Here's what it's going to cost to subcontract. What do you guys want to do? They're not really saying what we should do. And it seems like the other study was that too. I have them both downstairs. And again, it's been many years. And so now they're going to do another one. And I think it's going to say similar things, like here's what it costs to do, a shared ride taxi. Here's what it might cost if you own and operate your own vehicle. Monona has a really nice inner city shuttle that connects with Metro. Same with Sun Prairie, their shared ride taxi can connect you with the Metro routes and stuff. So again, since we did the last study, the population has changed, and I think there's even higher needs than there were before. So I don't know if I fully answer your question. I can certainly share those studies with you if you
I
want.
guess I'm just curious as, you can do studies after study after study.
Yeah.
But, if you're not finding out, I'm trying to understand what is stopping them from saying,
I think,
let's move forward with this, or
Well,
it's somewhere there's got to be a definitive, reason and answer as to why this transportation issue, which I know you've worked really hard, to try and get it, it's just not moving anywhere.
hey, Jay, are you on?
I am.
All right, you
Oh,
can,
maybe you have the answer.
I'm so sorry, Jay, I'm just not even paying attention. You've been around. You can share your insight on that if you would.
Yeah, so I missed part of that last comment. The sound isn't coming through very well this morning, but
Okay.
I think so. One of the things that we've talked about at the council is that without getting too into the weeds on how budgeting works, what we've been dealing with is the way the state helps municipalities. We get some money that's basically through the sales tax and through the general income tax, and that money is called shared revenue. Now, what's been happening is the state also limits the amount of money that we can charge in property taxes to the residents. So it's called the tax levy limit, and it's just the total amount that we can spend in a given year. And that amount increases every year based on the city's growth. So the city has had pretty intense growth over the last several years, but that's slowing down now, and there are some serious concerns about how we're even going to be able to maintain our existing staffing without that number increasing. And it's not just Fitchburg. There's a lot of municipalities around the state, especially Milwaukee, that have been having this same conversation. So in the budget that the governor just signed, there is an increase in shared revenue to all municipalities, but I'm not sure how much that's going to be for Fitchburg yet. They're still hashing out some of the finer details. But ultimately, we have needs for a lot of things. For example, we need 6 new firefighters, and that's going to cost about $1 million. And that just doesn't fit within the levy limit. So we have been talking about the potential need for having a referendum next year that would allow us to increase our property tax revenue. Basically, we have to go to the voters and ask them if we can increase their taxes beyond what the state allows. So I am hoping that we will have that referendum next fall, probably at the September election. In that referendum, I think we're going to have firefighters. We're going to have probably a few other staff positions, and hopefully some sort of intercity transit proposal where we can meet some of these needs, because the senior center isn't the only one that's having this particular need. but we're still a ways from that. We're going to have to come up with some proposals probably within the next 3 or 4 months. We're going to have to come up with an actual proposal. Apparently, the way these referenda are done is the city will have to hire a consultant to come in and help us with the educational process. I mean, it's a big production. So that's kind of where we are right now. I just can't imagine that in the 2024 budget, we're going to have enough room to add any kind of transit proposal. We're going to have to wait until after the referendum and hope that it passes.
Jay, would you be in support of me putting that money in my budget just for me to subcontract for a year?
Well, I mean, you can try it. I just don't, we haven't seen the proposed budget yet from the mayor because, obviously all the department heads don't have their proposals done yet.
Right.
But, I mean, we can only spend so much money. So if it's in there and it gets cut out by the mayor because there's just not money, I don't know how we'd be able to put it back in. Because we spend right up to the levy limit most years. And I expect that 2024 budget will be the same, that we'll be going right up to the levy limit, which is, we can't surpass that amount. We can't legally surpass that amount. So it depends, I mean, it may depend on how much it is. Maybe we can, if you're talking about a $10,000 or $20,000 expense, maybe we can cut it out. Maybe we can cut $10,000 or $20,000 out of somewhere else, but I don't know where it would be.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Janice.
Jay, thank you for that explanation. But, it seems like it's been overall a long period of time. So, but I mean, in the end, really just sounds like transportation, particularly for the senior center as it's been asked for, just has not been a priority. Would you say that? I mean, in the big picture. Yeah, I mean, in all honesty.
I don't know how much you know my history. I was first elected to the city council in 1993. And I was on the city council from 93 until 2009, and then I was the mayor from 2009 to 2011.
Right.
And this issue of transportation has been an issue every single year that I've been involved in Fitchburg politics. So I would say that up until recently, we have not had city councils that have been interested in expanding transit within the city. And it's, like I said before, it's not just the senior center. We have a number of other needs. Now, one of the things that may help mitigate this is we are in the process of building the hub up on Traceway Drive, and that will have space in it that could be utilized by the senior center to provide programming in that neighborhood. But, obviously that's not the only neighborhood we have. We have other neighborhoods that also need service.
Absolutely.
But honestly, it's only been, somehow the council managed to find it in their hearts, and it was a unanimous vote to maintain the level of transit in the Southdale neighborhood with Madison Metro. Madison Metro's new route redesign, they were going to cut out Southdale so that some residents were going to have to walk a half a mile to get to the closest bus stop. And fortunately, our council looked at that and they said that's just not acceptable. So they did provide a little extra money to Madison Metro to cover that expense of keeping the route, maintaining the routes the way they were. But, as far as any other kind of transit, this, it's a whole new program because we can't, it's difficult. This is what I've been told in the past. I don't know the answer right now, but what I've been told is it's difficult for the city to buy its own bus and then maintain drivers for that bus. It's a much, because I guess there's certain driver's license characteristics that have to be, I don't know if they have to be CDLs, but they have to have certain kinds of training in order to drive a bus around, I guess. I don't know. It's beyond my pay grade, but the easiest answer would be to contract with Madison Metro to provide whatever that service is going to be. But I think we have to figure it out. One of the things that we talked about at the council was having just some sort of east-west transit line that would go from where Target is basically to Southdale with, different stops along the way, probably going up through Jamestown and maybe hitting, what is that neighborhood where Allied Drive is? That neighborhood has a name and I've forgotten. Dunn's Marsh, going through Dunn's Marsh and continuing westward across the city. The problem is we don't really have a direct east-west route that goes through all those neighborhoods, so the route gets time consuming, and the more time and more miles, it just costs a lot of money. So, there's a lot of things that have been talked about, and we have a council right now that is sympathetic to some of these needs, and I think there's a solid majority on the council that's willing to fund this if we can find a way to get the money, and I think that's going to have to be through the referendum next year.
So given all of that,
Yeah.
I think your proposal is just a Band-Aid. It doesn't get to the root cause, but you won't get any money if you don't ask for any money. So
Correct.
as just one board voice, I would be supportive of you including this request, if for no other reason than to demonstrate your sustained concern and for this particular need.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
No, I don't disagree. When I put in money in the Healthy Neighborhood Initiative grant for transportation, just looking at cost of subcontracting, and I think, what Jay talked about, the east to west, kind of routes. We really need, for us, an on-demand, a call, come and pick me up at my doorstop kind of. And it did get really complicated. Not a lot of older adults can walk to a bus stop. So I like that door-to-door. It has to be a door-to-door service. We have to have wheelchair accessibility. So, just for figures, I went to Dane County because, I fought really hard to get a second bus. That's a Dane County contract that's funded through state monies. And they provided us a second bus around the lunch hour. And that was through ARPA funding because we were getting 16, 17, 18 people Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. That's too long. They can't pick up everybody with one bus and keep them, the rule is they can't be on the bus for more than an hour. So anyway, I really advocated hard. They gave me a second bus. So again, the hours of that second bus are about 10 to 2 by the time they pick people up, drop them off. So that's our allocated hours. And the county told me it was $52,000. And so now the ARPA money is going away. So now I'm working with the county to say, well, are you going to advocate for us to keep that second bus? We are the only site that has a second bus. No other site has a second bus. And it's because our ridership is high because we don't have any other transportation. And so, people might be using that bus to come for lunch, but they're actually using it to try to do some activities that we squish around the lunch hour. So, on the other hand, here I'm advocating with the county to say, can we keep that second bus? But again, we're starting to recruit new people to say, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. I'm kind of going off track. So for the Healthy Neighborhood Initiative, I put in $7,500, I think, and that was covering like 2 half-a-days per week to do additional programming up until 3 o'clock. So I crunched the numbers. So 10,000 is really not going to get a ton, but again, as Donna said, it says that I'm not going to stop making this a priority for the older adults. I stepped back. I stopped doing things just for older adults and try to engage more of the city to say, this is a city campus that people need to get to. it's not just for seniors. You have a shuttle that can get kids to the library and kids to the splash pad, all, over on Allied Drive with their babysitters or whatever, it's a bigger issue than just the senior center, but now I feel like I need to step away again and just focus on the seniors. It's just easier until the city kind of resolves to a bigger, solution that will serve more people. And so, go ahead, Janice.
And it's absolutely correct. And the reality is, these seniors are taxpayers here in Fitchburg, and they cannot get around. No, and
Right.
you're absolutely right. They cannot walk a block. They can't.
No.
Many of them can't walk a half a block.
Right.
And they deserve to have a better existence and the quality to be able to come to the senior center, to socialize, to be involved in programs and what have you. These people are still paying taxes, and even though they're older adults, and we have to realize and remember that, we talk about the children are our future. Well, these people were our future. They were our children, and they were our future. And now, but we are not really servicing them in the manner in which they should be serviced, and as simply as transportation to a senior center on a day-to-day basis.
Yep.
And I agree with you. I'm glad to hear you say you step back in terms of not having transportation for the whole city, because you think about, you get some of these older adults on a regular bus with kids and a variety of teenagers and what have you. That's not healthy for them, and that's uncomfortable, and that's dangerous for them in
Right.
many ways.
Right.
So I just think this is huge, but I guess it concerns me, because we continue, and I've heard you, I put in a proposal year after year after year, and nothing's happening. That's why I said to Jay and asked the question, this is not a priority. It just hasn't been a priority. And I understand the tax part and the governor signing off and et cetera, but it's deeper than that. We need to really figure out, why is it that we cannot provide services? And I was so happy to hear her say, can I put this in my budget? Would you guys support it? We just need to take a look at any and every option we possibly can have. These seniors, individuals deserve better than what's happening, not being able to come to the center to enjoy themselves and socialize with many of the other ones that can and drive and what have you. They don't drive. That's a reality. And so we have to face that. Not everybody is able to have a car, get in and ride over to the senior center and have a wonderful day. These people can't.
Hold those thoughts for the educational part of the referendum. Having been through referendum processes in the past, it will take many voices informing lots of people on those needs and many other needs that will be included in the referendum to get that message out.
So
We'll have to be a part of that.
are there stories that need to be heard?
Yes.
Right, I've
Are
been
there,
working.
Yes.
are there,
Yeah.
are there individuals
Yeah.
in this community who have a story to tell
Yeah,
that our lawmakers need to hear?
yeah, and I've been
Are-
working with somebody who was formerly in television that was going to help me make a video to help do some advocacy, because again, the folks that need it the most, they can't come and speak on behalf, they don't have Zoom. So I'm going to create a video that interviews folks to talk about the importance of getting out and socializing and needing transportation that will hopefully help this cause.
Why can't we bring those people here?
Well, I can pick them up
Yeah.
myself at night, or we
Absolutely.
can all.
I think,
yeah.
I think these individuals need to be here. They need to speak to this council.
Seen.
They need to be seen, heard. They need to be able to answer questions. Pinning your hopes on a referendum, I
Well, and yeah, that's
think
too far
that's
away.
real risky.
I think just putting this in the budget, we'll need the advocacy like that. Putting this amount in the budget, we'll need that same level of advocacy. Nothing to do with the referendum at this point. Yeah, Barb?
Is this I would think this is a statewide problem, and are other senior centers in your organization facing similar problems? And have they done anything differently or used any consultants, for example? I mean, I know that there are tons of transportation consultants. Are there other resources that you could draw on?
I've only taught, the communities that I know that sort of are here in Dane County, as I mentioned, like Monona has an inner city shuttle, Sun Prairie has an inner city shuttle, Stoughton has a shared ride taxi, Middleton has Metro Plus. So Metro Plus is the door-to-door. So if you get Metro, a regular service, which is why I was hoping, I can't say confidently that if they would have put the rapid transit down here to City Hall, then Metro Plus would have followed. So Metro Plus would have gotten us some of what we needed, because that's a door-to-door service that people could call and get here. So Middleton has Metro Plus, as well as the county. When you move outside of the county, like Verona or Belleville, they don't have a lot of supplemental transportation, but everything is really close by, and their ridership. So some senior centers have the same number of allocated hours of transportation by Dane County. But because their nutrition numbers are pretty low, that bus, once it goes to their community, it stays there. So then it shuttles people around the community, where we can't even do that. Ours is just for nutrition. So, each community is kind of unique in their issues.
What do some of these rural counties do?
Besides the ones out here, I don't know. They don't do anything. They just use the county contract. Maybe friends bring them. It's a different issues. They're not quite as busy, some of them.
They're as widespread, and
There is
you would think
widespread,
that
yeah,
you would have
yeah.
the same issues.
Yeah.
Be interesting to know
Well,
what they do.
Right, and that's why we're going to try to do, leaning in on the RSVP drivers, which we couldn't do before because there wasn't enough funding for reimbursement for mileage, to do outside of medical rises, start to do programs. And RSVP has agreed to reimburse drivers, maybe until they run out of money. And if so, and we've done this in the past, is then I look to the Friends, and if drivers want reimbursements, the Friends reimbursed our drivers for their mileage when we needed to get people to haircuts and to the bank and that kind of stuff. So, it's a big issue, and I can't say, if we get this money that our buses are going to be full, but it's going to take, I know, a handful of people right away, but we can't, again, it's the chicken or the egg. How do I market programs and services at the senior center to those that don't drive? All I can market is lunch. I can't market anything else. You can't come to foot care unless we can squeeze you in at 11:30. You can't come to, get your blood pressure taken unless you come to lunch. You can't come to, early aerobics. You can't do the knitting group, which is just a casual social group, because I don't have any transportation. So
There's a lot that they can't do. Yeah.
there's a lot,
Absolutely.
yeah.
What success has there been with getting some of the new housing units to add transportation as part of, or buses as part of their?
Right. So Jay, when Dave was on the commission last time, I talked to them, and I've talked to the city too, as parks are being built, those developers have to give money to parks, right? And that I thought that as these senior housing developments are being built in Fitchburg that aren't on bus lines that can get people here, could the city create some sort of, I don't know what I would call, it's not an ordinance, but an agreement that the developers kick in, X number of $1,000s per year to help fund transportation? Because I can tell you, those developers are telling those seniors, hey, the senior center has transportation. Well, we do if you want to come for lunch, but that's it. So, that didn't really gain any traction, but I still think it's a good idea but I don't know from a legality, like if we can demand that these developers give $2,000 a year. I mean, with all these senior housing apartments now, we could create, that would cover my 10 grand easy.
We actually can.
You can?
Yeah, so there's a provision in Wisconsin tax law called payment in lieu of taxes. The short for that is pilot. And pilot payments can be required when we do rezonings. So if we're rezoning something that we know is going to be tax exempt, like senior housing, we can require that developer as a condition of the rezoning that they agree to a pilot payment. As mentioned before, we can do that with any tax exempt property, and many of the politicians in Fitchburg over the years have been reluctant to say a church or to a senior project that you have to pay taxes even though you're tax exempt. So we can do that, and we should have been doing that all along. And at least one member of the council, for the years that he was on it, was arguing for that, but there just wasn't support. So whether there will be support now is a mystery to me. I just don't know.
Who do you think, how could we take it like a level higher? What would I need to do, and could you
Well,
help me do
the
that?
council has to do it.
Right,
It has to happen. It has to happen. I mean, it's beyond the council in a way. The mayor has to be on board.
Okay.
And there has to be directive to the planning department that says, when we have senior projects come in, there has to be a discussion about how transportation to the senior center is going to be paid for.
Okay,
So Jay, what's-
But even when I tried to do that when I was the mayor, there just was resistance coming from the council
okay.
that we can't be asking these people because we want them to build here. And the bottom line is, and this is what I've been trying to get through the minds of council members for years, is that everyone wants to build in Fitchburg. That's just how it is. They want to build here. And if they are going to build here, then they need to agree to these conditions.
Yeah.
And people are like, well, then they won't build here. Well, that's crap, because we see that they build here anyway. So, I get so tired of developers crying poverty about, we can't afford to do that. Well, yes, you can, when you're charging the kind of rent you're charging in these new apartment buildings, and even in the senior,
Right.
even in the new senior buildings. They're charging plenty of rent. They can afford it. They just are trying to maximize their profits right now. So I'm sorry, I'm getting carried away, but
Yeah.
this is one of those things where there needs to be political leadership, and it just isn't happening.
What do the cities like Sun Prairie, Middleton, Monona, and so on, do they have this pilot program? Is that how they provide all this transportation? Do we know?
I have no idea. I can ask, but I've never heard a director talk about like that. Oh, it's great. Our senior, blah, blah, kicks into it. They have the shared ride taxi stuff, like I said, in Monona, Sun Prairie, and Stoughton, and that's all state money and, that shared cost. But I don't know. I think it's a good idea. Can it be retroactive if for some reason we got it through? No.
No, we can't go back to someone who's not paying it. I
think we
mean,
missed our
we can
window.
always go and ask,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, right.
Once they have the zoning, once they have the building
Okay.
built, we have no mechanism to be able to require.
I'll call you. Yeah, okay. All right. Janice has to leave now, but we will continue. And so if you're all in agreement, I'm still going to put this money in the transportation. Okay. So that's sort of the biggest change. I'm going to up the program expenses too, because we're trying to do better outreach to these new senior apartments. And, they're affordable senior apartments, and it's nice to be able to go there and offer incentive to come to the senior center, whether, it's we bring food over or we host a luncheon. And I don't have a lot of excess money for that, so I am going to increase my program expenses and some nutrition expenses too. So I'll get you a full copy of the final budget. I mean, it'll probably be submitted before our last meeting, but you'll see that as well as the staffing proposals. Okay? All right.
Okay, thank you, Jill.
You're welcome.
So next we'll listen to the Senior Center Friends report.
Okay, the travel show was well-attended. They had 30 attendees, and at the time of the show, 10 people already booked trips, and 45 people are booked so far for trips this year, which is very good because we get a stipend for each one of those people from Mayflower to when they do travel. Payouts in July from the Friends. There was a total of $199.43 paid for special needs that are identified for clients by the social workers. And then, like Jill talked about, she has a budget that we give her, and there was a total of $233.20 spent from her budget for the State Journal subscription for $32.20. Food vouchers for some people identified by these social workers for the Juneteenth celebration for $105. And then prizes for bingo, so that came to, as I said before, $233.20. Also, the Fitchburg Singers have a website fee that we paid for them for $21.17. The only other couple things were that there was discussion and the board voted not to hold a brat lunch this year because with the construction of the patio, we were questioning whether access was going to be available because there was a lot of activity with people picking brats up by driving around in that area or sitting in the area where the patio is going to be built. And also, the brats were not donated. We did not get any brats donated to us this year from Metcalf's because Metcalf's sold the extra brats to people at the end of Brat Fest this year. But a lot of people were still very interested. Board members were very interested in continuing this. So next year, our new fiscal year starts October 1st. So we will start working on that sooner rather than later in the year next year. And we do plan to do it for the summer of 2024. Applications for the 3 vacant seats on the Friends Board are beginning to come in. The nominating committee will interview all the applicants in the coming weeks, and we will choose hopefully 3 people who will fill the spots of the people that have gone out of the positions and try to fill the jobs that they did the best with the best applicants.
Okay, any questions for the Friends? Okay, Director's report, Jill.
All right. One thing I didn't talk about for the budget too, one portion of that is new initiatives that I want to look at for 2024. And some of those include, the new initiative is the transportation for sure. A lot more culturally relevant programs are really going to focus on some diversity and really meeting the needs of the diverse older adults that we're seeing in the city. I want to work through an inclusion checklist. I found this really wonderful checklist that's specific for senior centers, but it would take a committee to work with me, but it really just covers the gamut from what your site looks like. Is your staff trained? How do you promote your marketing materials? And just really helpful to make sure that we're really just touching everybody and making sure we're meeting the needs. And sort of along with that, for years, every 5 years, we did a Wisconsin Association of Senior Centers accreditation. I think you've been through that. I don't know, Barb, if you were on it last time too, yeah. There's a national accreditation that we've looked at too, and for years and years, it was like $5,000 and just crazy. Well, now it's free. They just gave up. Maybe not enough people were not doing it because it was so expensive. You'd have to fly in a person. And so now they gave it for free. And so I want to kind of look at that compared with the WASC one. And just, it's just a really nice checklist to go through as well, just to make sure that things are running smoothly and your policies are good. And so anyway, those are some new initiatives that you'll see in the budget too. I did fail to do the administrative guidelines for programming. I forgot all about that as I sent out the packet. So I will bring that forward. That kind of fall in line with the programming policy that we approved. And so then we'll look at those administrative guidelines to make sure that we're not, just picking willy-nilly programs, that they really fit, those pillars that we're trying to strike and give us some consistency. So I'll bring that next month. Other stuff, we met, and thanks to a connection through Janice, we went with UW Mortgage Center, which is the UW volunteer organization. We worked with them years ago when we were doing some energy saving programs, and they were going out and cleaning people's refrigerators, like pulling them out and vacuuming. And but the issue was there was no transportation, so volunteers had to figure out how to come here. Well, now the Mortgage Center provides transportation for their volunteers. So we met with them looking for Spanish-speaking volunteers because we have a group, we have this connection through Newbridge, and we want to be able to not rely on Newbridge for that translation. And so they were really excited about that. So Mandy set up a site, so we'll be working with them and hopefully connect with a few this semester and next semester. And then we can offer, they can come for lunch and they can just help us do some translating. So that's exciting. The patio, we were going to break ground next Monday, and look, they moved it to Wednesday, but that's not so bad. And so we're moving forward. Donations still are coming in. I've gotten another, patio paver for $1,000, and so we continue to accept donations for the patio, but they are going to break ground, and so that's very exciting. So it should not affect the lower level at all. We will be sort of roping off up the sidewalk. They'll be putting their trailer way down at the end of the sidewalk there, but everything will happen sort of where the patio is and coming up that sidewalk to the front of the senior center. So the drive up, nothing like that will be impeded and business can go on as normal. So I was really happy to hear about that.
Jill, do you have a little ceremony planned for the groundbreaking?
We were going to, and because I met with them the Friday before I left for vacation, and they said, we can start, they were going to start this week. So I just didn't have time. I was thinking about doing something. I still probably could throw something together, but it won't be anything too big. So I was still debating about that.
Some ceremonial shovel.
Ceremonial
with the
shovel.
shovels.
Yeah, I wanted to
inviting
reach out, send an email to all the donors and stuff. I wasn't going to make it a big to-do because I was running out of time.
Doesn't have to
but
be
yeah.
a big to-do, but it's a good photo op for the
Yes.
star.
I don't disagree. Thanks because I was leaning towards not. So I met with Community and Economic Development to say, let's do this big groundbreaking, and then it was getting bigger, and then I was going on vacation, and then I was like, forget it. Just start doing it. So I'll look back at that. So he just confirmed this morning that they gave me 2 more days, so now it's Wednesday instead of Monday.
Okay.
So I will try to put something small together.
That's it.
Thank you. So anyway, so that's very exciting. We're doing an ice cream social. We're trying to do outreach to the apartments to say, come on over. We'll do a free voucher for lunch. Ice cream social next Tuesday, and the ukulele players are playing. And so come on over anyway. So hopefully we'll get some new folks. Social worker's office will be complete they've moved in. Katie's in a temporary desk. She'll have her desk on Monday. Otherwise, we're back to normal in there. And then, Paul, every time you ask me about the nutrition caterer, and I finally got the name, and they're called Atlantis Valley Foods. And so they will be our new caterer, but it is going through the county process now, which takes longer than the city process. And so we think by the fall we'll have a new caterer. In the meantime, the Friends are paying for some, the food has just been kind of marginal, and Mandy really likes fresh fruit and just, really nice things. And so she asked the Friends, or they approached her and said, what can we help with? So she's been buying like watermelon and cantaloupe and that kind of stuff. And
They were just doing applesauce as their fruit.
Yeah,
and
just
they
no
needed
fun.
some fresh fruit. And she said traditionally during the summer when there are more fresh fruits, we always had fresh fruits. So
Right.
we did decide to fund some of that. So.
Yeah, so that's very generous. So anyway, and I think that's about it.
Any questions for Jill? And the patio is scheduled to be finished on,
Well, supposedly the contract says August 31st. That can always be changed. And so we will see.
okay.
That's the goal, because we've already hired the Red Hot Horn Dogs for the grand opening on the 15th of September for National Senior Center Month, and I did throw that date out to him. And so hopefully, yeah.
Okay. Any other announcements?
Next month, I'm going to bring the social workers in as we work through the the county budget right now and what we're asking for case management. And, but I think it's always really interesting to hear their stories. And what we're seeing now is just hoarding, so many hoarding issues. It's crazy. It's just crazy here in Fitchburg. Hoarding, homelessness, mental health, and just even affordable housing, not just for those that are homeless, but so anyway, their stories are fascinating. It's things you might not think of that go on in our own community, but they do. And, people with 14, 15 cats and dead cats inside and, no running water, that kind of stuff. So anyway, they're keeping plenty busy with things like that.
Okay. Do I hear a motion for adjournment?
I'll second it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Adjourned. Our
Oh,
next meeting is next month.
Yeah.